Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we watch not just the first episode of a show,
but also the second. Some shows don't have the best pilot episode, and giving it a second chance might just change your mind.
Here we take that chance for you and let you know our opinion on if a show deserves more than one shot.
I'm Justice. Alongside me is my co-pilot Josh. Now, let's get ready for takeoff. Your in-flight entertainment this time will be Veronica Mars.
So Veronica Mars is one of those shows that's been on my, list of shows to watch for forever.
Yeah, like 20 years.
It being on my list of shows to watch is why, things like Gossip Girl have ended up on my list of things to watch, because, there's an overlap in the fandoms. It's probably literally why I watched The OC.
I'm not surprised.
Veronica Mars has been on my list for so long. It's honestly been on my list in the same way Twin Peaks has been, and, I'll go to watch it, and none of the streaming sites I have access to
will
have it.
Yeah.
And pirating full TV shows, if you're not just downloading the entire TV show, pirating individual episodes one at a time is such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, plus it's risky. Your ISP can cut you off, and also accessing a new file each time is obviously always risky when you're dealing with sketchy sites. So, it's a pain in the ass and riskier than I would like.
So, when I was scrolling through Hulu and saw Veronica Mars was on Hulu, I was like, oh, yeah, shit, gotta watch Veronica Mars.
But now that Twin Peaks is on Peacock, though, that means you can watch that, too.
Is it on Peacock?
I think they have access to it now.
I know it's on...
I might have the wrong app. Pluto? Pluto.
TV. It's on Pluto.
I had the wrong P-name channel.
Yeah, so I can watch it now, as long as I'm willing to sit through ads, which is the same case with Veronica Mars, because we don't pay for ad-free Hulu.
Yeah, no, that'd be ridiculous to do that. It's prohibitively expensive. It's not really prohibitively, but, it's fucking dumb.
It's over twice as expensive to just not have ads?
Yeah, no, it's fucking dumb.
You know what's crazy about Hulu's ad-supported experience, though?
Sometimes the ads just don't play.
Sometimes it's
2 seconds of black screen. Back to the show. Yeah.
Best ads. I love those ads.
You know what's fucking horrible and has nothing to do with the show?
What's that?
Did you see YouTube's new policies they're going to be implementing for ad block and stuff?
No, but I'm sure it's terrible.
If it registers ad block playing after one video, the video player will not work.
What if I refresh the site?
I would assume it would work after that, but it immediately kills it after a video. But I mean, that's not bad if you're a person who doesn't use autoplay, which neither of us use autoplay, so it's not the worst.
I'm not turning off my ad blocker for YouTube.
Fuck you, YouTube.
There used to be a time where I would just be like, who cares? It's a 30-second pre-roll.
Yeah, but now sometimes they'll try to give me 2 fucking minutes of an entire fucking commercial I can't skip. No. Ad block existed for a reason, because the internet's filled with a bunch of fucking ads that we don't want to see. What makes you think we're going to change that? Because you're but we want more money. Fuck you, YouTube. Fuck you, Google.
This is probably such a, millennial Gen Z take, but I should have, some say in what ads I have to consume.
If you ask Google, you do. You can report ads and tell them you don't want to see this one. And then you have to go through a little survey thing to tell them why you don't want to see it. And then they'll show you the same ad again later anyways.
I should be able to opt out of certain types of ads.
Mm-hmm. Not just a specific ad, but be I don't want to see ads pertaining to this at all. But no.
I should be able to opt out of seeing ads for what basically feels like scam software.
Yeah.
We've been getting a lot of ads on Hulu for Patriot Software.
Yeah.
Which I have looked up.
It's a payroll service.
It's not a scam.
It's just really shit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's a payroll service that sometimes doesn't send out payroll or forgets to take taxes out of the payroll.
Yeah, the larger issue with Patriot Software is in a lot of states, if you don't pay your employees on time,
you get hit with fines and have to pay them more.
So if you're paying to use the software,
it's also not a lot of states. It's every state. It's part of federal law. It's just after a certain time period, you owe them more money.
So if you're paying for a software whose job it is to run payroll and automate the pay for your employees, and then it just doesn't do it in a timely manner, why are you paying for that software?
Or, if it doesn't take out taxes, sometimes, but it does other times, you're not going to be looking for that. And who knows, when you go to file your taxes, you might be trying to commit tax fraud by accident.
Look, I know we're talking about Veronica Mars, but I've seen so many...
This is part of our watching experience of Veronica Mars, okay?
I've seen so many Patriot software commercials that I feel like I have to talk about Patriot software as well. Like,
it's so easy, my dog could do it. Yeah, it's so easy that even your dog could accidentally commit tax fraud.
Like, it's one of the commercial is so cheaply shot.
Yeah.
That watching the commercial, I get this deep internal feeling that it is a scam, that it is, actively trying to steal my money.
Like, it's the most basic fucking footage, simple purple banner across the bottom, and the person doing the voice work is ostensibly the owner, according to the commercials itself.
Yeah.
And I'd believe it, because he delivers it all in one monotone line. Flat, nothing, not great pacing, and I wholeheartedly believe it is the owner, and he just doesn't want to pay money for anyone else to say lines.
Well, you see, he's saving on the cost of the commercial so they can pass that savings on to their customers.
It's so he doesn't have to use his payroll app to pay the voice actor.
He's afraid that it might not pay on time and he would be fined for it.
Yep.
Oh, but yeah, that's a pivotal part of our Veronica Mars watching experience.
Just anytime that you think a commercial would feel appropriate for what we're talking about, I beg you to go to YouTube, skip their ads using ad blocker, and look up ads for Patriot software. Just so you understand the experience.
Yes. In fact,
you should start with one, because there's pre-roll ads on most streaming services now. We'll wait.
So you're back.
Yep.
We're back. And how was that Patriot software commercial? Did you learn a lot? Do you feel like they're trying to take your money out of your pocket even though you haven't went to their website?
They are trying to take money out of your pocket and then use that money to pay your employees. Or so they claim.
And then not pay your employees. And then when your bank account closes, be like, we can't give you that money back. This is a real thing that happened to a customer of Patriot software.
Yep.
Thousands of dollars they just don't have anymore because Patriot software took it out of their account to pay their employees. And then...
didn't pay their employees.
And now that account is closed, and Patriot Software is like, we can only return this money to the account it came from. We can't return it to another account. And the customer and the bank are like, that account doesn't exist anymore. We can't remake it exist.
Yeah, and you have the customer's assumedly social and identity, business account, all of it. And all of that can be backed up by the bank. And you are still refusing to return the money you stole from them. Because at that point, it is theft.
Oh, Patriot Software. So anyways, Veronica Mars, episode 1, is entitled Pilot.
Weird.
And this episode opens with
I thought she was a detective.
She's not even a detective. She's a high schooler who works as a secretary for a detective and then later joins the student newspaper.
Yeah, honestly, she has a very similar vibe to another character from around this time period in, Chloe from Smallville. Blonde, kind of brash, sassy, reporter-esque person who... they also have vaguely the same clothing style. Chloe's is probably a bit less punkish, I guess, would be the correct term. Or, no, that's the best I can come up with, but yeah, kind of. It gives a similar vibe a bit.
It has very similar vibes to me as, the premise of Gossip Girl.
Fair enough.
A spunky blonde high schooler revealing the secrets of her classmates.
Okay, you're not wrong.
I think the main character in Gossip Girl is blonde.
I got no idea.
Could be wrong. I've never seen it.
Look, man, you just said Gossip Girl and said some things, and I just went ahead and agreed with you because I don't know a single fucking thing about the show.
Anyways, Veronica Mars opens with exposition.
Where Veronica tells us about the town she lives in, the town of Neptune.
There's a lot of exposition in this episode.
Yeah, there is.
There's a lot of exposition in this TV show. I don't hate it.
Yeah, no. So the basic idea of what she's explained about Neptune is you're either rich or you're not.
There is no middle class. That doesn't exist. Like America today.
Yeah, the dwindling middle class started in Balboa County, Neptune.
California.
Yes.
Because it obviously takes place in California.
Yeah.
These teen shows from this era either took place in California or New York City. There was no in between. Except for Smallville, which took place in Kansas.
Literally in between. So I think you mean there very much was an in between.
The difference being Smallville had superheroes and superpowers.
I've seen Riverdale. You can't convince me
Riverdale is not from this era.
A teen sitcom won't randomly spiral out of control.
Riverdale is not from this era.
Yeah.
And Riverdale is very much a pastiche of this entire genre.
I mean, if it's a pastiche of the genre, then I would expect it to spiral out of control at some point.
It does, continuously and irrevocably. There is time travel.
I was talking about
demonic gargoyles.
I was talking about Veronica Mars.
Oh, no.
If it's a pastiche of the genre, I would expect the genre that it's making a satire or pastiche of to also spiral horribly out of control.
I think the genre in general.
Yeah, I know.
The teen drama.
I know.
It doesn't necessarily spiral out of control, but it does continually have to ratchet up the stakes in such a manner that it moves from being the realm of believable to the realm of soap opera.
I'm aware of how teen dramas work. I've watched more than I should be proud to admit to.
Riverdale ends with a meteor hit. Riverdale last season and a half hinges on a meteor hitting Riverdale. That's the primary plot point, and is why they travel back in time, is because the meteor hits Riverdale. And the final season might not be it might be the death dreams of the...
Or they move themselves back in time, put themselves in a time stasis so they can avoid tragedy, much like Miss Peregrine's Home for something kids.
Peculiar Children.
Peculiar Children, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where they put themselves in a time stasis bubble to avoid being hit by bombs during World War II.
I've seen that movie.
I've read that book.
I didn't know it was a book.
I haven't read any of the other series. I literally read the first book. That is it. It's fine.
So when I said I didn't know it was a book, I mean I didn't know it was a book until you told me about it when you saw the movie trailer.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, and you were talking about how the book was pretty good, and I was like, I'll give the movie a shot. I haven't went back and read the book.
I don't blame you. The movie wasn't very good.
The movie was not very good.
The book was, alright, fine. Pretty good for a kid's, young adult book. Very young adult, but, technically still a young adult novel.
So anyways, Veronica Mars pulls into her high school parking lot driving a LeBaron.
Yes.
I love her car. I'm not a car guy, but the LeBaron is a very,
It's just a nice, simple, it is a good middle-class car.
There is no middle class, though.
Exactly. That's why I haven't seen a LeBaron in a decade.
So she pulls into the parking lot, and the crowd is gathered around the flagpole because some kid has been taped up to the flagpole and stripped naked.
Yeah, and has the word snitch written across their chest. Really, this does just feel like Smallville. It's kind of how Smallville starts.
He does not have the word snitch written.
No, but he does have an S on his chest, and he is tied up, basically naked. This time it's just in a field. The difference is location because of the geography of where they're at.
I was gonna say he doesn't have snitch written across his chest.
It's an S because he's gonna be Superman.
It says snick.
Yeah.
They forgot the T.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's SNICH.
Okay.
Which I guess might still be snitch.
The English language is dumb.
Might still be pronounced snitch.
I would.
Yeah.
But other kids are laughing and taking pictures. And we hear some kids in the background being like, someone should let him down. And another person in the back was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be the next victim or whatever. And so Veronica scolds people. It's like, really? Someone should? And then she says whatever as the guy's trying to take a picture. And there's like, who put you in charge? And she pulls out a tiny pocket knife. And the guy's immediately like, fuck, you are crazy. And then she proceeds to cut down the kid taped to the flagpole.
My favorite part is the guy that she's telling to get out of the way.
Yeah.
Assumedly doesn't think she's gonna cut this kid down off the flagpole.
Yeah.
She pulls the knife out. He's like, "Oh fuck, you're right, my bad." And gets out of the way, not because he thinks she's gonna cut down Wallace.
Yeah.
That's the kid's name. Because he's afraid she's gonna stab him.
Yeah. It's moments like this in television and in real life when people talk about things that happened in their schooling where I do remember that I grew up in the middle of fucking nowhere. Because everyone had a fucking pocket knife on them. Someone pulling out a pocket knife doesn't even get a reprimand from the teacher. The teacher's put it away. And that's it. That's the only response I would have gotten in high school or grade school. I knew grade schoolers with pocket knives.
Yeah, well, it's because we lived in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Fuck, dude. I think when I was a freshman in high school, somebody got in trouble. But this is the type of trouble they got in. They got in the type of trouble where the teacher's like, "Hey, don't do that again."
Yeah.
Because they
scold, waggle finger.
Because they had a rifle on a rack in the back of their truck.
Yep.
It was on the back window of their truck.
And a gun rack.
And a gun rack. And the teacher were like, "Hey."
It says in the rule book you can't bring guns on school, even in gun racks. It literally mentions gun racks in the school code. I'm pretty sure at most schools that wouldn't have been no, bad, what are you doing? That would have been okay, so we have to call the police now? Mm-hmm. We have to call the police. You are definitely suspended, out of school suspension for 2 weeks, while we review if you're going to be expelled or not for bringing a gun onto campus.
But middle of nowhere high school is naughty you.
No.
We know it's deer season. We know you went hunting this morning, but you can't be bringing your rifle onto school grounds.
Yeah.
Don't do it again.
Mm-hmm. To which, obviously, I heard a lot of kids being like, because then the school cracked down a bit on it. By which I mean, they're like, hey, definitely don't do that. And then I heard a lot of kids being like, yeah, it's not my gun rack anymore. I have it underneath the seats.
Or behind the seats now.
Just actively talking about it where teachers could hear, and teachers were just like, as long as I can't see it.
Yeah, so Anyways, we cut from her cutting this kid down
to
her being in class asleep because she works late nights.
Yeah.
Because like you said, even though she's ostensibly just the secretary for her dad's investigation business, we'll get to that. We'll just get to that. But she's asleep in class. Mm-hmm. The teacher calls on her, and we get it's a demonstration that she is a good student still, even though she's sleeping in class, because the teacher calls on her while she's asleep. Is like, hey, what about this section from this work by Pope? And Veronica rattles it off from memory.
Yeah.
And then
it's something on the Treatise of Man by Alexander Pope, I believe is what they're talking about.
And then gives a very succinct, if not appropriate, summation of it. Is the teacher's like, what do you think Pope meant by that? And Veronica's like,
life's a bitch, and then you die.
And the teacher's like, well, you're not wrong.
But that's inappropriate. What I think he's trying to say is blah, 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 blah. The happiness in life that we can find is what pushes us to continue to the next time, which I disagree with based on the Treatise of Man by Alexander Pope. I have to agree with Veronica, having read it. Yeah, no, life's a bitch, and then you die. That's really kind of what Pope's getting at, in my opinion.
Pope isn't just life's a bitch and then you die. He's like, life's a bitch, but if you live piously and righteously enough, when you die, life is much better because you get rewarded for it, for life being a bitch.
Yeah.
Pope was a Christian.
Yeah, we obviously.
But yeah,
life's a bitch and then you die. And if you're lucky, it's kind of just boring afterwards because he was that type of Christian, really. Mm-hmm. He's like, it's not much better. It's just boring, but it's not hell. So yay.
After class, actually, probably during class, she gets called for a random locker inspection.
Yeah.
Which aren't random. And because her dad used to be sheriff, she has ties to the police. Mm-hmm. The sheriff department. They're not police. Yeah. Not technically. She has ties to the sheriff department, so she knows when random locker inspections are happening.
That's the insinuation. We still don't know exactly how she knows.
Yeah, so her locker is completely empty except for a picture of the vice principal and a heart.
And the vice
principal's there at the locker check. Which
one of my favorite parts in the scene, though, is as she's starting to open the locker, the police dog there is starting to bark, and she just tells the dog, she actually just calls his name, the dog quiets, and the deputy just looks generally confused for a moment, why the dog responded to her.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Yeah, she knows the police dog.
Yeah.
Yeah. But her locker's completely empty, and I would be my initial thought is, isn't that more suspicious?
I know so many kids in high school that just carried all their shit in a backpack.
Yeah, but she doesn't, because in later episodes, we see stuff in her locker.
Yeah, but they don't know that. Every time they search it, it's empty.
That's also not true.
As far as I'm aware, every time they search it, it's empty.
My bad. It's time to be upfront with you, audience. I've watched the entirety of season 1 of Veronica Mars. I love this show.
4 episodes.
But so we get to lunch, where we get more exposition about her rich friends. Well, the group of people who used to be her rich friends.
Yes.
She's no longer associated with that group. And she was only ever associated with that group because her dad was sheriff, and that bought some social cachet.
But more importantly, she was dating Duncan Kane, son of Jake Kane.
The person who invented video streaming.
Yes, and was so successful that most of the people in town are only millionaires and made their money off of him as well.
So successful that everybody that worked in his company before video streaming was patented,
all the way down to the secretarial pool,
are all millionaires now.
Yes. Definitely exaggeration, but because there's no way they were in on profit sharing, that would imply that they were all invested, and not everyone in the company is going to fucking invest.
Yeah.
But I understand the vibe.
But yeah, that's essentially what's going on there. But she's not friends with him anymore because of things that happened. We don't know it yet, though.
Yeah, Duncan apparently dumped her for no reason is the implication. Mm-hmm. And then she's reflecting on one of the other main people there, because we only ever really talk about Duncan. And then we talk about his best friend, Logan Eccles, the arrogant asshole of school, because everyone needs one.
And Logan is the son of movie action star Aaron Eccles. We get that because we find out that that's how he's wealthy.
I mean, we don't get his name.
Okay. And Logan dated her best friend Lily.
Yes.
And while
Duncan's sister.
While she's staring off into space thinking about all this, Wallace, the kid from the flagpole, sits down across from her and
thanks her. And she's like, so what are you staring off for? And she's like, who the fuck told you could sit here?
And then he gets up to go leave. And she's like, no, wait, you can sit anywhere you want. I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
And then almost immediately, the motorcycle gang from the school starts harassing Wallace. Mm-hmm. And then because she intervenes, starts harassing her.
Yeah.
And there's some implication here that she has a reputation for being promiscuous or easy.
Yeah.
But she manages to distract the motorcycle gang from Wallace long enough for the vice principal to show up and be like, hey, what you guys doing? Yeah. And then be like, well, so why is trouble always around you, Veronica? Why are you like a trouble magnet?
And that's the end of that scene.
And then, I mean, it's not the end of the scene.
Yeah, no, because then Veronica actually asks Wallace about what he did to piss off the PCH bike gang.
And so we find out that Wallace works at the local convenience store called Pack and Sack.
I thought it was Sack and Pack.
It might be Sack and Pack, Pack and Sack, whatever.
I think it's Sack and Pack just by order. You put it in a sack and then you pack it away.
I think it's Pack and Sack because of the English language dictates the alphabetical order of words within. Yeah. I don't know.
It's one of the two.
Yeah, but he explains to her that 2 of the gang members came into the store last night
and just stashed so many 40s in their way too large coats.
Mm-hmm. And he hit the silent alarm because they gave him $1 for
a box of dots. It looked like. Which, come on, buy at least a decent candy.
Yeah, and when the cops got there, the sheriffs got there actually. Mm-hmm. He recanted his statement because he was intimidated by the gang.
Because the sheriff dragged out the only witness in front of the entire gang of bikers that he knows is associated with these 2 suspects. Like, what the fuck?
And so, intimidated by the gang, he recants his statement. The sheriff, being a little bitch, pushes past him, walks into the store, and
confiscates a VHS tape that, given the fact that the crime was recanted and thus no crime has been reported, illegally arrests these 2 teenagers and steals property from this convenience store?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why they tied him up to a flagpole. And he also mentions that during this interaction, the sheriff, who is now obviously pissed at him, tells him to go see the wizard and get some fucking guts. To which, when he's done something like that, Veronica's like, oh, no, so in your brief time here, you've not only managed to piss off the local bike gang, but also the sheriff's department.
Mm-hmm. So then we cut to the end of school.
Yes.
It's just kind of this is just kind of like a montage. Veronica gets home, pets her dog, takes her dog to the beach.
I mean, she has a brief flashback about Duncan in the pool at his place, assumedly. I was going to say the motel, but I assume they weren't dating when she was there.
No, yeah, it was definitely at either her house or his house.
She's just looking at the pool, and my brain was like, it's the same. It's obviously not the same place, obviously, but my brain was like, it's the same.
Yeah, there's also a brief flashback to her mom hosting a birthday party for her. Both of these are not plot relevant.
The only thing with mom vaguely is a woman then calls in to help her and she says mom in a somewhat excited / surprised voice, which does have the implication that her mother's not around, which we very quickly learn is the case.
But she takes her dog to the beach,
where she comes across Wallace flying a RC plane.
They kind of wave at each other kind of self-consciously. And that's the end of that scene. So she goes back to the office where her dad works, where she noticed that Celeste Kane, Duncan's mom's car, is at the office.
Yes, and she talks about how Celeste hates Veronica for some reason.
And hates her dad even more.
Because her dad investigated Jake Kane for the death of his daughter. Yeah, that's a great way to make friends. I don't know if they mention that right here, but it's
I don't know if they tell us why specifically.
Yeah. Celeste hates Keith?
Yeah. And while Veronica is talking about this, a public defender named Cliff McCormick,
played by Darren Norris, you might recognize as Cosmo, or Gordy, or a bunch of random anime voices in the background of stuff, or the news anchor from iZombie.
Weatherman, Johnny Frost.
Yeah, but you definitely recognize his voice if you hear it.
Yeah, iconic, honestly.
Yeah.
He comes in and he's like, hey, I got this case I need your dad's help on. And she's like, Dad's in a meeting. He's like, that's okay, because your dad spends half his time chasing bill jumpers anyways. There's no way he does all these cases.
He's like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, that's fine. I understand you know what I'm talking about. I'm just going to leave this case open on your desk right here. And if it gets solved, it gets solved.
See, this woman,
Loretta Cancun,
was arrested for beating up a vending machine, a
laundry machine, because they did her quarters. And she works down at the 7th Hill, a strip club. And she's talked about how there's some weird ways that they manage to keep their liquor license despite being really lax on ID. And she's willing to make a deal, but
we need some evidence to back her up. And Veronica's like, can't do anything about that.
And he's like, yep, I'm sure you can't. And then he gets up and walks out.
I love him. Cliff McCormick he's an ongoing character, and like I said, I've seen the full first season, which is 22 episodes.
Yeah.
He's an ongoing character, reoccurring character, and he just gets better and better just about every time he appears. He's like a little bit more every time.
Yeah. So then Celeste leaves Keith's office, and this is actually where Veronica, in voiceover and a bit of flashback, explains why Celeste hates her father, which is, hey, when Lily, her best friend, died, Keith investigated Jake Kane, Celeste's husband, Duncan's father, Lily's father, in the murder of his daughter. Aggressively.
Yes. So then after that flash, we get Veronica and her dad eating dinner together in the office. It's like hot dogs and mac and cheese or something. Or just or sandwiches and mac and cheese.
Yeah. I think it's bologna.
It might be bologna sandwiches and mac and cheese.
And she is vaguely kind of grilling her dad about why Celeste came by and what the case is that she wants.
And her dad keeps trying to dodge.
And then he eventually concedes. He's like, look, she thinks her husband's cheating on her. And so, we'll take a look at it. He's going to motels and stuff, odd hours. And then she's like, sexual appetite. He looks incredibly uncomfortable having this conversation. He's just like, none. She's like, okay. She goes, so what we're going to take? He's like, well, we really need the money. So she's like, good, I would have been pissed if we didn't.
He's like I care what you would have been.
Yeah.
But honestly, Keith Mars, one of the best characters on the show.
Oh, yeah. Keith is fantastic, and I've only seen a bit of him, but immediately ingratiates himself quite well to the audience, in my opinion.
And then when he's telling her, they're having this conversation, the phone rings. She picks it up because, again, she's the secretary for the office.
Yep. Well, he gestured for her to not to. They're having family dinner.
But she picks it up, hands it to her dad after answering it. Apparently, a bell jumper that he's chasing has just been spotted in Texas.
In El Paso, close to the border.
So he's got to take a flight out tonight. So
she assures him she'll get the
flight booked and get him a rental car booked in Texas. They have a brief back and forth about him being like, nothing too ostentatious this time. And she's like,
a blazer's not ostentatious. And he just gives her a look and she's like, fine, I'll get you a Crown Vic.
Once a cop, always a cop.
Veronica, you're wrong. He was a sheriff. It was an elected position. He didn't have to have any form of law enforcement training.
Once a cop, always a cop. ACAB forever.
Yeah. Sorry, Keith. I like you, but you're a bastard.
But he's like, I don't want you investigating this
Jake Kane case. And she's like, okay. And he's like, when you do investigate Jake Kane, take backup. And she says, okay.
I always do.
Yeah. And then he leaves.
So she then basically immediately begins telling Jake Kane as he drives around town from his office, and eventually to a motel called the Camelot Inn.
Yep.
We then get a flashback about how Duncan Kane was Veronica's first and only love.
Yeah.
And Lily Kane was her best friend. And Lily Kane was murdered a year ago, and that changed everything.
Yeah.
We also learned that her dad was sheriff.
Yeah.
That he investigated Jake Kane in the death of his daughter, and that's why he lost his job.
This is also, I think, where they line out that he's super rich.
Yes. And we also learned that because Keith lost his job,
his wife left him.
His wife left him because they were going to have to downsize to a smaller house, and like it's made to seem like she was...
And the social pariahness of it.
Yeah.
Also, though, when we originally see Lily in the background, in the flashback, her and Veronica are like a pep squad car wash, and Amanda Seyfried, yes, but Lily mentioned something about having a secret, but we don't get to learn what it is.
Well, also Lily's high on drugs during this scene.
Yeah, the Prozac is working.
Yeah.
So, obviously, if she's a teenager, who knows what the fucking secret might be something dumb, or because this is a mystery show, it's probably going to turn out to be something important.
As a little seed for everybody, it's something vastly and mightily important that you have to watch another 21 episodes to find out.
Nice.
So, like I said, Veronica follows Jake Kane to the city motel. We had all these flashbacks, but she can't get a picture of the woman in the hotel. But she does manage to get like pictures of license plates.
Yep. But while this is happening, up pulls a motorcycle gang.
Yeah, led by Weevil. He was the dude that was giving her the most rough at lunch initially.
He appears to be the leader of the gang.
And
one of the guys approaches Veronica's car and starts to say something about who's going to get first. The implications there are not great. But then a dog jumps out of the back and starts biting him.
Yeah. And then another guy comes up with the car door and like starts to make threats at Veronica.
To call off her dog.
And she just tases him.
Yeah.
Drops him on the ground with a taser. Just like... Zzz, 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 zzz.
Yeah. So then Weevil steps up to try to talk things down. So she looks at her dog and says,
oh, not yet, no. Because she tases the guy once, he drops, and then he grabs the door to stand back up, and she tases him again.
She doesn't tase him again, she goes to tase him again at the end of this interaction.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my bad.
So she calls off her dog, whose name is Backup. The dog's name is Backup, it's great. And she tells Weevil to give her and the snitch kid, Wallace, a week without being bothered. And he's like, fine. He's like, you think you're a badass, but you're not really, but whatever.
Yeah, the agreement is they'll stop bothering Veronica and Wallace for a week, and she'll get the charges dropped on the two...
Yeah, guys who got busted.
Yeah.
So then the guy who got tased stands up and like grabs the frame of the car door. Whether it's to help him up or not is unclear, but he starts to glare at her and she just holds up the taser again, so he immediately backs off.
Yeah, and as this scene ends, Weevil takes another shot about how easy Veronica is, how she's into freaky shit. And this leads to Veronica giving us a flashback. She's like, oh, you want to know how I lost my virginity? Me too. Because, and obviously trigger warning ahead, she went to a party 2 months after Lily died to prove that, like, her dad losing the job and her losing social standing.
Because her friends cut her off because it was either choose them or her father.
That didn't bother her, and she was still going to, like, go out and party and, like...
have fun. And she got roofied.
Got roofied and then date raped.
Yep.
Maybe not date raped, technically, because it wasn't a date.
Yeah.
Just roofied and raped.
Yep.
So we cut to school the next day.
She also mentioned she never told her father.
Yeah, because she didn't know what her dad would do with that. Yeah.
Not sure if that's important or not. May come up later. It's a big point for potential drama, so mentioning it.
At school the next day, Lily's ex, Logan, harasses her as she is walking from her car to the school, and he just driving his, like, Jeep thing. I don't know what type of car it is.
It looks like a weird fusion between a Jeep and a Humvee. Well, a Hummer, I guess. And it's bright yellow, and he later calls it his T-Bird, but I don't think...
I don't think that's a Thunderbird.
Yeah, neither do I.
Weird. But he stops like, he stops the car alongside her to harass her. He's like, oh, hey, we were going to go to the beach to catch some waves instead of studying. You want to come with us? I'm sure we can get Duncan to take his shirt off for you. Does that get you hot and bothered?
And she's just not saying anything. Then he offers her some alcohol from a flask, and she doesn't say anything. He's like, what about your mom? I know she really likes to drink. Haven't seen her around in a while. Any idea where she even is? And then Duncan, like, grabs the flask out of his arm and tells him to lay off. And Logan's like, she used to be fun, and drives off.
We also learn at this point through another flashback, because the show is flashback heavy.
Yes.
Especially in this first episode, that her mom just disappeared in the middle of the night, leaving only a music box and a note saying that she'd be back eventually.
Yes. So then we go to lunch, where Veronica sits down at the table where Wallace is, which is the table she normally sits at. And Wallace is like, I've heard a bunch of things about you. Like, not great things. She's like, then why the fuck are you sitting here? He's like, well, from the way I understand it, I can either sit with the assholes who laughed at me and didn't help me, or I can sit with the chick who cut me down. So, like, obviously you.
She then ropes him into a plot to get the biker gang to leave him alone.
Yes. So we see them go visit a kid in what looks to be an art class.
Yeah, and his name is Corny.
Yeah, and the guy's just laughing the entire time, looking at this notebook of apparently a plan. We don't get to learn what it is, but he's like, this is fucking great. Hell, this is so good. I'll give you the glaze gratis, like no charge.
She then heads home to print off pictures from her stakeout the night before.
Yep.
And as she's doing that, her dad gets back after having successfully caught his target. And this is Keith Mars' best scene in the first episode.
Yeah. He shows up and he's like, who's your dad? And she's like, don't say that. That always bothers me. He's like, you know what? You need to understand something. I was cool. It was fact. I was cool. Like back in '77, I remember listening to Blue Oyster Cult.
Top down in my
Trans Am with a Foxy stacked blonde by my side. Oh, wait a minute. No, that was just a Springsteen song. Never mind. I was never cool.
And then he's like, but no, seriously, steaks for dinners. Ba-da-bop, ba-da-bop, as he dances off screen.
He doesn't ba-da-bop, ba-da-bop-bop-bop. He talks about different foods and how they can eat like the lower middle class they aspire to be, which is a great line.
Yeah.
And then he walks off. While humming, the girl to Ipanema goes walking.
Oh, my bad, yeah.
He pops back around the corner and goes, seriously, steak for dinner, though. And then we transition to him grilling steak, and then Veronica asks him, gives him a photo of the car she had license plates of, explaining that, yeah, she followed Jake Kane. And
he's like, I thought I told you not to do that. And she's like, I distinctly remember you telling me to take backup when I did do it.
To which he kind of like wryly smiles and nods. And he's like, well, how'd it go? And she's like, no money shot, but I did get a picture of a license plate. He's like, okay, let me see it. The moment he sees it, his face goes from like kind of light and like assumedly impressed with his daughter still, to just like serious as fuck, crumples the photo, throws it at the side, and it's like, drop this case.
Yeah, he does a complete 180 on the case. He's like, nope, we're dropping it, we're not doing it.
I'm actually going to call Celeste and tell her we can't do it.
And she's like, what? Why? And he's like, nope, we can't.
Yeah.
We cut to the next morning at school, and there's a random drug inspection for lockers again.
And the locker is Logan's.
And it turns out the art friend named Corny was commissioned to make a bong, which was then planted in Logan's locker.
It's a cherub with a tiny bowl in front of its genitals, which is where you would put the weed.
Yes.
It's honestly not the worst bong I've ever seen.
So,
I mean, I've never seen one. Why would I have ever seen one besides in movies?
We then cut to her being Veronica and Wallace in Veronica's car outside the police department.
Well, we see Logan see her because she is watching, because of course she has to watch her own handiwork. He sees her, immediately clocks that was her, and it's like, I'm going to get you for this. I know it's fucking you. And then we cut to her and Wallace outside the police station.
And she's like, it's time to see if you did your part, Wallace. And he's like, okay. And he has
his RC controller.
And I guess they've used this to like...
It's just working as a radio transmitter to some form of smoke/explosive in the bong that they left there.
And it sets off a bunch of smoke in the evidence locker. And Ingrid, the front desk agent, Inga, the front desk agent for the sheriff's department of Balboa County, calls the fire department.
She first says, for the love of God, a fire, but in German. I'm not gonna lie, I was completely not expecting that. And I disassociated for a moment when I was first watching this, and I was like, did I fall asleep? Random fucking German out of nowhere. Wasn't expecting it. Like, she's German, it's fine. She has a heavy accent later, but like, just was not expecting it given anything else in the show. Threw me for a loop for a moment.
So the fire department shows up, they enter the evidence locker, and they deal with the smoke device.
And then we see Veronica walking into the fire department, asking for the chief, who is walking out of the door holding a orange manila envelope.
And so she also mentions here that even though her dad's no longer sheriff, he still has a bunch of people who support him and like him and will do favors for her and him. And he gives her evidence he stole out of the sheriff's department evidence lockup.
Yep.
It's not a favor. That's not a favor. Committing felonies for each other is not favors.
I mean, it is in mobs.
So we cut back to Veronica at Mars
Investigation Agency office.
And she's calling another police precinct.
While pretending to be Inga and saying their computers are down.
And this happens so often that the other police precinct isn't, like...
sketched by it.
And by happens so often, I'm actually, like, in my brain, I think every time the computers have been down for Neptune County's Neptune's sheriff department, it's actually just been Veronica calling this other police precinct.
Yeah, because the guy's like, really, Inga, this is the 10th time. You guys really need to pay. And she's like, you're telling me. But there was a hit and run last night, and the victim got the plate, and we just need you to run it. So the guy does, and it turns out the plate from the Camelot Motel she got a picture of is for her mother's car.
Yep. And then she asks her dad again, hey, why are we dropping the Kane case?
He's like, okay, I ran the license plate like you wanted me to, and it's like I thought. It's corporate espionage stuff. We don't get paid enough. It's pretty dangerous. We're just not going to do it.
Yep. So...
And he's like, hey, so let's rent a movie or something. And she's like, I gotta go. And he's like, but we could do, and she's already leaving.
So when she left, she's going to the
sheriff's office,
Balboa County Sheriff's Office, to find out where the preliminary trial is for the gangsters that stole from the Sack and Pack.
Yep.
Inga, the desk agent, who's the person she went to for information, is like, I can't remember the last time I saw you. But Veronica's like,
we both know. Flashback to her walking away from the party to go report that she'd been raped. And the new sheriff just completely writes it off. He's like, what do you want me to do? You don't have any evidence? Am I just supposed to bring in the son of every affluent member of
Neptune?
Yeah. Grow a fucking spine. Well, actually, it says, go visit the widow to ask for a backbone. He's a shitty sheriff. There are so many protocols. He should not be the one taking this interview at all.
Yeah.
It should be a female member of the police station. She should be taken to a hospital. They should be establishing a rape kit case.
Inga might be the only female member of the Balboa County Sheriff Department.
Thing you normally would have, I believe in the circumstances, you have police officers posted outside the door where the examination is taking place, and she would still be the one at least there and present more often than not.
Well, we cut to the courtroom for the preliminary hearing,
where
the sheriff is
cockily smiling and being like, yeah, and when we got there, like 20 bottles still in their coat, and he's leaning back in the stand, leaning up against the side of the box, just smirk on his face. He's like, we got this tape we can play. You'll see right here the two suspects. And then he sees Veronica walking, and his smile just drops, and he looks immediately suspicious.
Yeah.
And the tape starts playing.
And he's like, can we roll the tape? And so they roll the tape, and it is, instead of being the surveillance video from the Sack and Pack, it is a woman from the 7th Ville walking out of the strip club and getting into a police car and trading sexual favors for what we can assume to be a leniency on the alcohol license for the strip club.
And they're just like, Sheriff Lamb, is that one of your officers? Is this how you run your department?
And then Cliff, who is the public defender for the gangsters as well, is like, I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but could we file a motion to dismiss the case against Loretta Cancun?
Yeah. He's right. It is not the appropriate time. It's a completely different fucking case. But he did ask if it wasn't appropriate or not. So
afterwards, we're back at the beach. Veronica meets up with Wallace, and she gives him the actual surveillance tape from the Sack and Pack.
Yeah.
And then they kind of hang out. Initially, she's like, oh, I don't need anything from you. Like,
this was all for my own interest. He's like, nah. That's the shit you say for the masses. But underneath that angry girl exterior is a slightly less angry girl. You're like a marshmallow or a Twinkie.
And he lets her fly his
RC airplane.
Until they notice Logan and 3 of his friends posted up on her car.
Yep.
And so they go to confront Logan, and he has a crowbar.
He's like, hey, do you know what your little stunt cost me? And she's like, I don't fucking know. So he smashes out a headlight.
He's like, do you know what your stunt cost me? She's like, your bong?
Oh, yeah, you're not getting that back. He's like, wrong answer. Smashes a headlight. He's like, want to try again? And she's like, clearly your sense of humor. Smashes another headlight. He's like, no, my daddy took my T-Bird away.
And then, as he's like potentially threatening to do more,
up pulls the PCH bike gang.
And we was like,
vandalism? Nah.
Vandalism in my town?
Nah, that all goes through me.
So Weevil takes the crowbar and approaches the car that Logan and his friends showed up in, and one of his friends is like, hey, no, that's not his Logan's, car. That's my mom's.
He's like, she can bill me, I don't care. And proceeds to put a fairly sizable dent into the hood with the tire iron he took out of Logan's hand and smash a headlight.
And the funny thing is, I don't think he like intentionally smashed the headlight. He kind of like just taps the headlight with the crowbar. Yeah. He's not like swinging it angrily or anything. He just goes and knocks it out.
Yeah.
And then he's like, okay, now all of you, get the fuck out of here.
Except for you, points to Logan. Like, you're going to say sorry. And Logan's like, no, I'm not. So he immediately gets punched in the gut so hard it drops him to the ground.
And then Logan stands back up and Weevil's like, apologize?
And Logan's like, fuck you. So Weevil smashes him in the face and he drops, and his nose is bleeding and everything. And Veronica goes, no, stop. I don't need him to say sorry. I don't want his sorry. And Weevil's like, okay, kind of just nods for Logan to go.
He's not like, okay. He's like, are you sure?
Yeah.
I could do this
all day.
All day.
Yeah.
I could Captain America this.
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, I'm sure. So he just gives a little like side head nod gesture into the car for Logan to go. Logan and his friends take off in a bit of a rush. And then Weevil is talking to Veronica. He's like, so the tape just poofed?
Well, first he's like, tape just poofed. And then he's like, and if you need somebody to fix your car, my uncle runs a body shop.
We can make sure you get a full body inspection.
And she's like, now you apologize. And he's like, oh, that's all right. That was my bad.
Was that too dirty? And she's like, not to me, you dork. To him, points at Wallace. He's like, nah. She's like, okay then. Wallace is the only one with the video from the sack and pack, whatever it was. Wallace, let's go figure out what we're gonna do with that. He's like, whoa, wait. Look, man, I guess I'm sorry. So can I get that tape back? And Wallace goes, no. And they just walk off.
So then we get another voiceover from Veronica. She's sitting outside the Mars Investigation Agency in her car. And she's like, it's always the people you trust that you find out you can't trust.
Yeah.
This morning I woke up thinking I had at least one person in the world I could rely on. It turns out they'll lie to me too. And
so then she goes into the office right after her father leaves and is like, Dad doesn't think I know where the combination of the safe is. But he's wrong. I've just never had to use it. But now. So then she opens the safe, pulls out some files, and there's a giant, thick-ass fucking folder that is about the Lily Kane murder.
And as she flips through it, she notices that, like, it's the newest updates in the folder are, like, less than 2 weeks old. Mm-hmm. And the picture from the Camelot Inn is also in the folder now.
Yeah, she's like, what the fuck is that doing there?
So she's sitting at her desk in the office when her dad comes back in after seeing lights on.
Yeah, he's like, hey, kiddo, what you doing?
It's family fun night. Why are you still at the office? She's like, oh, I just forgot some books here, but I need to stop somewhere on the way home. I'll see you at home.
Yeah. Well, we also learned she has kind of bad taste in movies, in my opinion, because he's like, I rented South Park, the movie, and she's like, my favorite. That is apparently her favorite film.
Yeah, I mean, she's a 17-year-old in 2005, so like...
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. She then, more monologue, rationalizes to herself that her father lying to her is just him trying to protect her, but she goes back to the Camelot Inn, to the same room that Jake Kane went to, and knocks on the door, but no one answers. Mm-hmm. And that's the end of the episode.
So, Josh, what are your thoughts on episode 1 of Veronica Mars?
Dude,
pilot?
It's so much. There is so much in this episode. Like, fuck. The show is a typical 40-minute teen drama. And there is just so much packed into this one episode. It feels like it's so much longer than 40 to 45 minutes.
It really does.
It sets up so many different things. As a pilot, I think it's terrible.
Oh yeah, no, it's not a good pilot. It does too much.
As a pilot, it's actively not a good pilot. It has too many threads, too much stuff going on, and it doesn't actually, like, give you enough introduction to, like, more characters than Veronica.
And with all of its exposition that it does being so weighty, what is ostensibly the A-plot, the helping Wallace out situation, feels more like a B-plot.
Does this episode have an A-plot?
Ostensibly, it is helping Wallace and the Packers.
I know ostensibly what the A-plot is. Yeah. But does the show actually have an A-plot in this episode?
No, it doesn't really feel like it. It's just exposition where we are using Wallace's introduction as a means to progress time.
Yeah, like, when I sat down to rewatch this to review it, my first question was, what is the case for episode 1? What's, like, the plot? Yeah. What's the A-plot? And I was like, oh yeah, it's helping Wallace out. And I was like, is that even the A-plot? Like...
Yeah, it's crazy. But, given all of that, would you watch the next episode?
Yeah, because I like teen dramas. And also, Clinton McCormick is beautiful. And so is Mars... God, I forget his first name. I'm so bad.
Keith?
So is Keith Mars. They're both incredible characters. And I like Veronica too, but honestly, in this first episode, she's not the standout star.
Fair.
But yeah, I would watch more. Justice?
I would also watch more. I definitely think the show's exposition heavy. I'm not a huge fan of the way the flashbacks are done, by which I mean they're introduced fine whenever they come up. Just visually, it is it's a flashback. We'll make the edges hazy and to be subversive instead of making everything sepia because we're going for more drama. We'll make everything somewhat tonally blue and crank up the exposure on the lights. So all the light will be really orange and all the shading on people will be really blue. You'll really think we're a low-budget horror movie trying to shoot things for nighttime.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It definitely has a stylistic feeling that it's aiming for.
Yeah. And for a show that I know was originally based off the idea of a book series that the creator wanted to do, being more noir, there's not as much noir influence as I would like in the first episode, but that doesn't really matter. The show is still good.
Yeah, I didn't know it was based off the concept of a book series.
Yeah, apparently the creator, Rob Thomas, was originally going to do a book series with the main character being a guy, and they were like, it's more subversive to do a girl, and it gives more options. And then he's like, and now it's a TV show.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I think that means episode 2 now?
Credit where credit is due.
Which does have an A-plot. It does have an actual A-plot.
It does indeed. It's actually the majority of the plot.
So, this episode starts with Wallace being like, hey, Veronica, what are you doing this weekend?
And she's like, I don't know, basically nothing.
I'm probably gonna rent a movie.
Yeah.
And he's like, see, this is your problem. Need to socialize more.
He's like, here's this flyer about a party. I just have no idea when it is or where. And she's like, okay, so if you see here the 09, that's referring to 09ers, the rich people who can afford to live in 90909.
A fictional area code.
Mm-hmm. And then...
But, importantly, the 90 does signify that it's the San Diego area.
Yeah. And so, the 09's on here mean it's only for 09ers. And then the hourglass, because it has sandlets, you know what's going to happen at the beach. And then the K9s throughout let you know more specifically it's going to happen at Dog Beach. And then the eggs are Friday.
And the moon means that it's happening when the sun goes down. Yeah. After dark.
And he's like, how do you know all this? She's like, well, it's in code to keep out undesirables. Like you and me. He's like, then how do you know? She's like, I used to be one of them.
I used to not be an undesirable. Yeah. Now I am. Thanks, Wallace.
Yeah. And then we cut to the party, where surprisingly Worn Up by Korn is playing, and I wasn't expecting it.
So this is actually one of my favorite things about this show thus far. I'm not. That's a lie. It's not one of my favorite things, but I really do appreciate it because
you weren't expecting it at all.
There's an issue watching shows that aired before streaming.
Yeah.
And that is, a lot of them don't have their original music because technically the licensing rights didn't include streaming.
Yeah.
So you get stuff like House not having
Massive Attack.
Yeah, so you get stuff like House not having Massive Attack being the opening theme on streaming services and even outside of the United States. It didn't have license to be the theme song outside of the US. Or you get stuff like Supernatural where the end song is supposed to be Carry On My Wayward Son, but has been changed because they don't have rights still for that song. Yeah. Even though it's very pivotal, the rock music for Supernatural is very pivotal to the show.
Yep. Hell, so I think there's even one episode on streaming that now doesn't have Bad Moon Rising in it. And like there's references to it throughout the episode.
You mean the episode Bad Moon Rising?
Is that the name of the episode? I thought so, but I don't want to call it.
Yeah.
It's literally like the way the episode starts, it's playing the song and the episode ends with the song. And it's just not in the episode. Or on like some streaming services.
Scrubs is now on streaming service. And like Scrubs is really like Scrubs and Supernatural are really like terrible examples. They're really audacious examples because both Supernatural was written with these songs in mind, and Scrubs had scenes actively written around these songs. Yeah. And now they're no longer in the show because people suck. Because people suck. That's why.
Because corporations suck, because they don't want to pay artists respectively what they are deserved.
Somehow, Veronica Mars still has all of the original music from the original run.
Yeah. Which, like, I know I referenced some of it earlier. I believe, I might be wrong, I think in one of the seasons, I want to say like 4 or some shit, there's an episode at the cafe where a band is playing, an actual band, but they don't have that band's music playing anymore on the streaming.
Oof.
Yeah. There are several other instances where the bands are there and playing their actual songs still, but I do believe there's one instance where a band is performing and it's not their song playing anymore.
I wonder if Buffy has that problem.
I don't know. I haven't really watched Buffy on streaming. I just watched it on DVD that we own.
Yeah, because we own like the first 4 or 5 seasons on DVD.
Yeah.
Which, honestly...
I think everything but the last season.
Last 2. At least the last 2.
Oh, yeah.
Because we don't have any of the Willow arc.
I forgot that was an arc.
Evil Willow. But, honestly, if there is a show you enjoy from the pre-streaming era, it is almost best to just seek out like actual DVD copies, or if you can, Blu-ray copies. And if you can't, yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum. Because the fact is, we now live in an era where you can go in and change what a show was.
Yeah.
And in like the cases of some of these shows, like Scrubs and Supernatural, entire themologies and episodes were built around these songs that are no longer available.
Yeah. I mean, just look at how much Disney has changed for the better for their back catalog being extremely racist. Though I am surprised they haven't changed Iron Man 2 for being really racist. Because, I mean, it'd be pretty easy to remove Elon Musk from that movie. He's in it for like 20 seconds, but he's still there.
Yeah. It is weird that Disney now has somebody who actively does the Nazi salute on national television in a movie.
Yeah, and they haven't gone back to digitally remove him. Or just cut his entire scene, because it's literally just him standing in the background being like, I would like to invest in Stark Industries.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't stutter enough delivering that line, but it's fine.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the party with Korn's Word Up.
Yes, and it's the 09ers, so it's Logan and Duncan and people all hanging out, and Logan is chilling with Duncan, and he's like...
Logan and Duncan and Paris Hilton?
Yes, Paris Hilton, I was about to mention, because this is our first introduction to Logan's current girlfriend, who is...
Oh, no, she's been in other scenes.
This is our first introduction to her.
My bad, yeah, you're right.
We don't know she's his girlfriend or anything other than that.
Fair enough.
And she is talking to a guy who's come with Duncan, whose name is Troy Vandergraaf, played by Aaron Ashmore, one of the two Ashmore twins who are in everything but never together.
It sounds like he's exaggerating when he says never together, but we did fact check this.
They have never acted across from each other or even in the same movie or TV show at the same time. I have to add that conclusion because the only TV show that they have both been in was Smallville, and they were seasons apart.
3 years apart.
Playing different characters as well.
Aaron appears in the later seasons as Jimmy Olsen, but Sean appears in season 1 and season 3 respectively as two separate characters.
I think he plays the same character.
Oh, okay.
Because I think the character he plays in Leech and in Asylum are the same.
Oh.
I might be wrong about that.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was just a thing where they recast the same person. So no. I know they have done that.
Yeah, but I know they also bring back a few from the earlier seasons who are like in a correctional department thing. I think that might be the one he's in.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. It's been forever since I've watched that show.
But they've never been in a movie together, and they've never been on screen at the same time in a show.
Yeah.
They've never been in the same season together on a show. The only show they've ever been on both is Smallville.
Yeah. But Paris Hilton and Troy, or Aaron, are talking, and Logan's like, well, how much do you know about this Troy guy? Like, and Duncan's like, he and his family owned a skiff in the marina next to ours. They come around like once a year in like August and stay for like a month. It really just depends on what his dad's doing, wherever his new projects are.
Yep.
But I've known for like ever.
And while they're having this party, the bikers show up, and Weevil's like, I don't know what you guys are doing here.
Well, he grabs a drink, and then Logan approaches him. He's like, this is a private party. And Weevil's like, oh, my bad. I didn't realize. Hey, have I ever asked to play through at the fucking golf?
At your private golf club? Or have you ever seen me surfing down in the
90909, I think is what it was.
At your beach? Or maybe you came home one weekend.
And someone just chilling in your backyard, having a barbecue? No? The motherfucker, you were in my backyard, throwing a party.
Like, you can't be, it's a private party, and then throw it in somebody else's backyard.
Yeah.
And then Logan's like, hey, Caitlin, you've been to my house, right?
Yeah.
You know how clean it is? That's because this bitch's grandmother cleans up for us. She's our maid.
Yeah, Caitlin being Paris Hilton, a.k.a. Logan's girlfriend.
Mm-hmm. And
then a guy from By Weevil steps up and he's like, oh yeah, Grandma talks about how it's kind of really hard to clean up after you guys. You guys go through an entire box a day.
And this guy is Chardo, Weevil's cousin, who lives with Weevil.
And really, a single box a day for your room. And then Logan has an alright comeback, in my opinion, which is just like, she's a sexy woman, what can I say?
And then a cop car turns its lights on, and over the speaker goes, everybody, get your IDs out, stay where you are.
So everybody takes off, and then the deputy in the passenger seat's like, okay, so we're going to go after them. To which the sheriff in the front seat, Sheriff Fleming's just like, no, grab the keg, let the guys know, barbecue at my house this weekend.
So the next day, Weevil and Chardo are hanging out at home, playing Madden.
Yep.
This looks like 06, Madden 06.
Yeah. When they get Madden a knock 05. On the door, and it's the sheriff and a deputy.
Then Weevil's like, oh, so you already arrested all the rich kids, right? Because, like, you're now down here with us. And
the sheriff's like, that has nothing to do with it. Mrs. Navarro, I can't remember her first name.
Letitia.
Yeah. Letitia Navarro, you're under arrest for
credit card fraud
and identity theft.
Turns out somebody took pre-approved credit card applications from the garbage at the Eccles place and then opened a bunch of fake accounts, charged up a bunch of stuff in Eccles' name, and since Letitia's the maid there, she's the prime suspect.
Yep. Also because
we later find out, but like it's not a spoiler, the P.O. box where stuff was being delivered was in Letitia's name.
Yeah. And Weevil's me like, what the fuck? She didn't do that. And Lamb's like, yeah, I know, but it's the only thing we have evidence on. Take a real asshole to let a sweet old lady go to jail for him. Heavily saying / implying that he suspects Weevil is the one responsible.
Yep. So then Letitia's lawyer,
Cliff
McCormick,
shows up at the Mars Investigation Agency office where he is talking to Keith about the entire situation when Veronica overhears them talking about how Cliff and Lamb both suspect that it's actually Weevil.
Yeah, and like Cliff is like, look at these charges. 6 different video games, limo rides, motorcycle gear,
a ticket to Magic Mountain,
a paint job for a motorcycle. Like, this is all obviously not Letitia. She didn't spend this money. And then Veronica's like, yeah, but like,
I don't think Weevil did it either. You know, Lamb really hates him. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamb's just setting him up for it. And then both Cliff and her father look at her and she's like, he helped me out a bit ago. I might be a bit biased.
And then Cliff is like, regardless, all the stuff was sent to her P.O. box and she was wearing a diamond pendant that was bought with one of the credit cards.
And look, I got a sweet old lady in jail who I need to get out of there, so.
So Veronica then goes to Weevil's place because she knows Weevil and she's like, I don't think he did it, but just to double check. He's not happy to see her though because she
is heavily inspecting his bike.
And also, like, even though she's not really, like, good with the rich kids anymore, she has the 09 rub on her.
Yeah.
So, like...
He's like, you act like you're an outsider, but you're not one of them, you're not one of us.
Yeah.
You still think like them. Like, get the fuck out of here.
And she's like, yeah, but you have to see where the sheriff's coming from, right? Like, with your reputation. He's like, oh.
So if we're believing reputations, I guess I should believe everything I hear about you. And her face is, like, set in stone. She's not looking at him. She's looking off to the side. And that's kind of the end of the interaction where he's, like, jabbing at her, being like, if reputations are what's fucking real. So then she leaves.
Yep. So the next morning, Veronica and her dad are out for breakfast at a local restaurant when Sheriff Lamb comes in and basically just to harass Keith.
Yeah, he just plops in their seat, in their booth. While waiting for their food.
And Keith's like, you come to give me shit, but shouldn't you be looking for that guy that just escaped from your custody?
Yeah.
Like, he's wanted for manslaughter. Why are you letting a murderer run around Neptune?
And he's like, oh, it's these two cops. I'm pretty sure they're the ones you hired. And Keith's like, oh yeah, Veronica, that's a real example of leadership. Being like, yeah, so the buck stops...
Over there.
Yeah. And then Keith's like, hey, it's coming up on the year anniversary of Lily Kane's murder. What are you going to do to celebrate? Maybe you should dress up like a sheriff.
And accuse a father of murdering his daughter.
Crucify a father from murdering his daughter, just for old times.
And then Keith is like, yeah, but about that, isn't it really weird that the person that called in the anonymous tip never claimed the $100,000 reward?
No, it's like, remind me how you solved it. An anonymous tip to a houseboat where there was just conveniently the shoes and bags of the victim. Anyone ever collect that tip? Don't you find that weird? And Lamb's like, no, not compared to harassing the victim's father.
And he also mentions that the Kane family all had eyewitnesses and phone record alibis for the night of Lily's murder. And that kind of like just shuts Keith up.
And then Lamb gets up and leaves, and Veronica lamely says, smell you later. To which her father's just like, smell you later?
Really? Really, Veronica?
And Veronica's like, I gotta go. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, I've got to get to school early. The counselor wants to talk to me. He's like, why does the counselor want to talk to you? To which Veronica replies, she wants to talk to me about my general attitude and grades. Not specifically in that order. Her words.
So we cut to her at the office where she meets Aaron Ashmore.
Yeah. And he tells her to smile in a bad British accent.
Can we get a smile, babe?
I think he calls her love, but yeah.
Can we get a smile, love? Like that. I think just as bad of a British accent.
Except I think it's give me.
Oh, give me a smile, love.
Yeah. And she has a seemingly positive reaction to it. The mid-2000s were a weird time.
Yeah. She then encounters...
Do you remember when we didn't used to make fun of British people and their voices?
Yes, because I distinctly remember being a fan of like Lizzie McGuire and show like stuff like that. And Lizzie McGuire had like an entire episode where there was a British exchange student, and both Lizzie and her friend were swooning over him because he had a British accent.
I mean, in a more related thing, strictly because it has Darren Norris in it. There's an entire episode of Ned's Declassified where Cookie pretends to be British when he gets moved into an advanced mathematics class. And then there's another British kid who he's rivals with, and it turns out they're both faking British accents, so people will like them.
It's weird that we ever thought people liked British people.
Yeah, crazy times we used to live in.
Crazy times.
But then Wallace walks in because he is now an office aide.
And she's like, oh, that's great. And he's like, for who?
She's like, for me. Could you get me the past month of Weevil's attendance record? And he's like, you want me to... What do you think I am, James Bond?
Yeah, and there's been a back and forth. She's like, no, I'm not asking you to, like, steal a missile.
Yeah.
So then she goes to see the faculty advisor. So we cut from the office to her meeting the faculty advisor for the school paper because apparently I
don't know if it's a faculty advisor because the woman calls it newspaper class.
Yeah, the teacher for the newspaper class. Because apparently she now has to take this class because the
guidance counselor said she is lacking like
direction and focus.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And it's like guidance counselors can just make you take an extra class.
Fucked up.
Incredibly fucked up. I wanted that study hall.
Yeah. So the teacher's like, okay, so what do you want to do? She's like, could I just take pictures? He's like, well, I don't know if you can just take pictures, but we can definitely start you there. So then she takes her over to a cabinet where they have cameras and pulls one out. And she's like, okay, so this is a 35mm lens. You can do, like, you'll need to do this.
It's not like a cheap, shitty digital camera, but it is like a standard digital camera, especially for the time. Like,
yeah, it's a bit higher end for digital cameras, but nothing superb.
Probably in like the $150 to $200 range.
Yeah. And then Veronica's like, well, actually I prefer to use my own camera. Pulls out her camera that she uses for private investigation purposes. And she's like, so it actually goes to a 75.5mm zoom.
71.2.
71.2mm zoom, which is really good. And the LCD flip screen is really good for when you're trying to take high shots or macro shots. And
also it keeps the raw file, which is great because after you develop it, you can do a lot more like editing it with a raw file than you can a JPEG.
And alter the exposure rather than with the JPEG. And then the teacher's just like nodding along. She's like, yeah. And
when it's dark outside,
you can just remember to use Flash.
The teacher for the newspaper is named Miss Dent.
Yeah.
And she's amazing. Absolutely fantastic.
And she's like, okay, so are you free tomorrow after school? And Veronica's like, yeah, I'm good.
I guess, yeah.
And she's like, okay, so
there's a surf competition. Yeah.
There's a student who's been doing really well in some surf competition. There's a surf competition just down the highway a bit.
At Gold Coast.
So if you could take pictures of that, you can go with the person who's writing the articles, and she walks over to a cubicle where, what do you know, it's Duncan, Veronica's ex-boyfriend.
And Ms. Dent's like, by the way, I talked to the surfer's parents. You guys can ride with him. And Duncan's like, I'll drive.
Yeah.
And she's like, cool. Maybe Veronica can ride with you.
And Veronica's gonna be like, I can drive too.
And she's like, damn the oil crisis, I guess.
Yeah.
Which is brilliant. Love it. Wallace does get her copies of Weevil's records.
Yes, they cut to lunch.
And Veronica's like, a lot of these purchases happened
when he's in shop class.
And like, there's no internet in shop class.
And Wallace is like, well, maybe because now she's like,
six times out of the
7 out of the 8.
Yeah, 7 out of the 8 times. And he's like, maybe not. So she's like, well, Weevil's probably innocent then. So she goes back to her father's agency after school, and she's like, "Hey, look!" Well, she goes to show them the evidence. Yeah. But her father and Cliff are there, and Cliff's like, "Letitia's been released," and
she's like, "Oh, that's great."
Yeah, Veronica's like, "That's great."
And her father's like, "Because Eli Navarro has confessed and is now in juvie."
Eli Navarro is the real name
of Weevil.
Weevil's a street name. And she's like, "Why would he confess if he didn't do it?" So the next day, in journalism class, Logan and Caitlin are talking about his parents firing Letitia.
Yeah, and he's like, it's gonna be so hard to find good help. And Caitlin's just like, oh, I didn't like her. She was always looking at me funny when I was there.
Yeah, and then Veronica reminds them that 90% of identity theft is done by family members. And Paris Hilton is like, no one cares what you think, Veronica Mars.
And Veronica's like, it seems like you do. And then Logan comes in and is like, why are you even here in this class? Is it just to stalk Duncan? And she's like, no, I'm here so I can be closer to you.
So Veronica checks the browser history of Logan because she thinks Logan's the one that did it now.
Mm-hmm. And she's going over this with Wallace at lunch. He's like, so did you find anything? She's like, no, just that he really wants to find pictures of Alyssa Milano naked. And Wallace is like, nice.
She does find that Logan visited the Neptune Grand Hotel website, and there was a charge on the credit card for the honeymoon suite there, but he didn't actually check out. Mm-hmm. So, there's reason to suspect that he might have been involved, but, he didn't buy it at school.
But after school, she needs to head to the Gold Coast to go to the surfing competition. But her car has a flat, the second flat tire today.
And she starts trying to change it because she needs to be at the Gold Coast in 30 minutes. Troy comes by and he's like, I can help you change the tire.
And he's like, so what's your name? She's like, Veronica. Well, actually, he walks in and asks flat. She goes, just as God made me. He's like, are you always this persnickety? She's like, sometimes I'm even more persnickety.
I actually didn't catch the flat joke. Yeah. Initially I didn't read it as a joke until the second time through this episode. I was like, that was actually kind of funny. Yeah. Clever.
Yeah. And then they introduce themselves and she's like, my name's Veronica. He's like, oh, Veronica. Oh, that makes a lot more sense. And she's like, what? He's like, oh, I should never believe those guys. Like, who would name their daughter Trampy McBitchface?
I love the idea.
I think it's just Trampy McBitch. Face should have been added on, but I think I did that myself.
I love that the implication is that he was like, oh yeah, that's totally a name somebody would name somebody. And Logan and Caitlin are talking over at Logan's car because Caitlin's like, why is Troy talking to her? Doesn't he know?
Yeah.
And while this is going on,
Duncan walks up.
And he's like, flat tire. And she's like, yep. He goes, you can ride with me.
Yeah.
And she's like, kind of looks at Logan. She kind of looks at Troy. And Troy's like, don't worry about it. I can finish changing this tire out for you.
And then I'll drop your tools in the trunk and close it up and everything.
So she leaves him there with her car, trunk open, to change her tire. And she rides with Duncan to the beach. The whole time being like, in voiceover, I should have just walked. Yeah, it's a 30-minute drive.
But this is silence is insufferable. If he doesn't say something in the next 5 seconds, I'm going to Charlie Angels around the door. And then a song starts playing on the radio. And we're like, Lily loved this song. And she's like, yeah. And then we get a flashback to her and Lily in the car with the song playing. And she is asking Lily why her mother hates her so much. Hates Veronica so much. And Lily's just like, she's afraid of anyone that Duncan might love more than her. And Lily's basically like, look, my mom's basically a bitch. I'd watch out for her. She sucks. Is the overall vibe of the conversation that she has in that flashback.
The song in particular is Troubled Times by Fountains of Wayne.
Yeah. And then as they're getting closer, Veronica sees Weevil out on the side of the road picking up trash in an orange jumpsuit because he's in juvie. Because
he's not in juvie. He's just in community service.
Yeah, he's doing community service. Also, he is in jail vaguely from what they've implied. He's not at school.
Oh, yeah.
So he is...
So he's in actually juvie and he's...
He just hasn't posted bail or been tried or anything. Yet they're still making him do community service. Which
it's because he admitted to it. There's no trial now. There's no trial if he...
Yeah, you're right. So there is still a sentencing, so he shouldn't be doing community service yet.
His sentencing was just the next day. This show has no concept of how courts work.
Yeah, fair.
Like,
they did ask to dismiss an entirely different case during another one.
This show has no concept of how courts work. After they do the surfing story, Veronica and Duncan are headed back to town. It's dark out. The cop pulls them over.
And they're going to impound the car because the car has a bunch of tickets and moving violations.
Including, the cop says, a moving violation from October 3rd of last year.
Which is the day Lily died.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, this is Lily's car.
Or it was a shared car, but like...
So they get out of the car. They both call their parents. When Jake Duncan shows up, he talks to the officer. He's like, have you called the sheriff? And the guy's like, no, we don't normally do that for routine traffic stops.
Jake Kane? Duncan's his first name? Duncan.
Oh, yeah. Jake Kane, sorry. He's like, call the sheriff. The one cop doing his actual job is about to have this entire traffic stop bounced because the rich guy said so. Yay.
Plot spoilers. You're going to love it when a 20-something-year-old cop starts dating a high schooler later.
Yay!
Yeah. So Veronica's dad picks her up, and on the way home is like, so, you and Duncan seeing each other again.
She's like, no, that's not what it is. It was just for a school thing. He's like, oh, okay.
Sure, I believe you. And so there is a bit of voiceover where Veronica talks about the last time Jake and Keith were in the same place.
Where Keith really pressed him, and then Jake immediately went to the media about it. And was like, this guy's accusing me of killing my own daughter.
Which led to Veronica's friends, quotation marks, freezing her out. She chose to stand by her father.
And now she's wondering if that's something she should have done to begin with.
If she gave up her whole social life for her father's mistake.
Yeah.
On her way home, Veronica's like, hey, Dad, could we stop at the Neptune Grand and, like, I need your help?
So then we go to Neptune Grand where he is dragging her in by the arm and she looks upset and doesn't want to be there. And he starts yelling at the desk manager that they need to see a manager and he's getting very upset. So Veronica steps in and she's like, I'm sorry about my dad.
I was here a month ago.
With a guy and I'm pregnant now and I don't
remember who he was or what he looked like because I had way too much to drink. I have the credit card bill here. Again. And the woman like went from being like, God, I hate fucking dealing with customers to being like, oh God, I hope I can do something for this girl.
Yeah, this is horrible. Let me go talk to my manager. So she walks off, and then immediately Veronica and Keith drop the facade and are talking to her. He's like, so what do you think? She's like, that was a bit too much. She's like, really? A bit much? I can dial back if you need me to. She's like, yeah, just a little bit.
So they can't get the security tapes because...
They only keep it for 2 weeks.
But they do have a full copy of the bill, including signatures from room service.
And Veronica's like, okay, thank you, and then they leave.
Turns out room service was signed for by Caitlin, Logan's girlfriend. So the next day at school, Veronica mentions to Logan that
she knows.
And he's like, knows what? Prove it. But he's incredibly confused.
Yeah, because she mentions Caitlin signing for something at the Neptune Grand. He's like, what?
So then back at the police station, Keith brings in the manslaughter fugitive the cops let get away.
Yep.
Which upsets Sheriff Lem because Keith's doing the sheriff's jobs for them.
Yeah. And Keith is exacerbating it, and it's fucking great. He's like, yeah, so here's this guy. Hey, Lem.
Don't you need to call a press conference? Get some pictures?
Yeah, isn't that how things are done in this office now? And Lem's ignoring him. He's like, well, so do I need to go to accounts receivable, or are you going to cut the check personally yourself?
And then Lem goes to walk off, and he's like, oh, should I follow you to your office?
Yeah.
Like, then we cut...
I like to note during this entire time, Inga is in the background, and she looks amused by this interaction. I have to assume she also doesn't like Lem.
Then we cut back to the school where Troy and Veronica are at Veronica's locker, and Troy's like, hey, having a party this weekend. You should come.
And she's like, I'm not allowed out there. She's like, it's actually at the table.
Yeah, it's not at the locker. And he's
like, look, there's something really wrong with the world when a sexy, sassy girl can't come to my party. And I think in that type of situation, all parties involved should just admit that maybe they were wrong and that they're sorry. And it's all just let bygones be bygones, water under the bridge, and just go to a party.
And Veronica's like, I'll think about it. But then Wallace sits down. He's like, where'd the neighborhood go? What's going on here?
Yeah. And then we cut to Logan talking to Duncan because Troy is off with Caitlin and they're talking, and Logan is now suspicious because it seems he at least doesn't know anything about the Grand Neptune. And he's asking Duncan, hey, so how much do you know about this Troy guy? And like, do you trust him and everything? He's like, he's like a good guy. But since you're here now, you can watch your girlfriend's purse. And then Duncan gets up and leaves.
And then Logan rifles through his girlfriend's purse to find her cell phone.
And Veronica dips from her table to go nail Logan, she says.
Because she has
the build history, which has calls that were made because they got charged for the phone calls.
Mm-hmm. And so as she's going through the calls, trying to figure out whose number's whose, Logan goes through Caitlin's cell and finds a strange number which he doesn't recognize.
He doesn't go through it entirely unprompted, to be fair. She gets a call Duncan said she had a missed call. So he goes to look at it, and then he's like, sees a number he doesn't recognize, and then goes through, and he's like, wait, who's she calling at 1 a.m.?
And he calls the number back.
At the same time that Veronica ostensibly calls the number.
So Veronica gets a busy tone, but Logan's call connects through, and we hear a voice come through the phone. He's like, oh, calling me
at school? That's bold.
And we find out that it's Chardo, Weevil's cousin. Logan also spots Chardo and recognizes that it's Weevil's cousin.
It looks very pissed.
And, like, it's not just implication. Chardo basically, he thinks Caitlin called him on purpose and is just being quiet. And Chardo starts, like, talking about
the things he'll do later that night.
Yeah. Like,
and then we cut to Veronica, who calls her father to run the number. And then from that scene, basically, we have her dragging Chardo into the women's bathroom and being like, hey, what the fuck? You're letting Weevil take the fall for this? I know it's you.
And he's like, yeah, but me and Caitlin are in love. You see, like, it's okay because I'm going to get Caitlin to run away with me, and then I will send a letter back to the police admitting it was me so Weevil can get out of jail.
And she's like, that's not going to work. She doesn't love you. He's like, you're so wrong. He's like, well, then why do I always see Logan Eccles' hands all over her? And he's like, he lets out like a pissed huff and opens the door and storms out of the bathroom.
So Veronica goes to see Letitia.
Yes.
Because she has concluded that Letitia knew it was Chardo.
Because Letitia does have a pendant that she must have gotten from Chardo.
And Letitia's like, yeah, but it's okay. Weevil's 17. He can do 4 months in juvie.
Chardo's 18. He has a record. They'll put him in jail.
So she's like, she was figuring she was saving Chardo, her grandson, from hard time.
So Letitia's kind of done the conversation. She's like, I've got to make supper. And kind of gets up to go do that.
And Veronica's like, do you know what he was spending the money on?
And Letitia hesitates. And Veronica goes, oh, rich, spoiled white girl. And Letitia's like,
And then she's like, at her. You know Logan's girlfriend, Caitlin? Her. And she goes, I never liked that girl.
Yeah. So that's fun there.
So Weevil is then released. Yep. Because there's now evidence that points to Chardo.
Yeah. And he gets back and his grandmother's like, oh, mijo, I'm going to go make you some food. You really need some food. And Weevil's like, hey, Veronica, thanks. Gives her a hug. And she's like, yeah. So just after you were released, though, the sheriff's office the judge put out a warrant for Chardo. Mm-hmm. And
also the 09ers are looking for him because of his involvement with Caitlin.
And Weevil's like, don't worry. We'll find him first.
So Chardo, being the intelligent man he is,
pulls up on his bike right outside of Caitlin's house.
And he's like, look, we need to go. He's on the phone.
It's like we always talked about. It's time for us to go, baby.
And
she opens the blinds, is just kind of staring down at him, and she's like, what's wrong?
And then 09ers start coming out of the bushes and all
he
around.
Backs up, scared.
And then a Jeep pulls up, and Logan jumps off the Jeep along with another friend, and they've surrounded him.
He's like, it's not 15-on-4 this time.
And so Logan punches him and knocks him to the ground, and it looks like he's about to curb stomp him.
Yeah, he pins his head up against the curb and has a foot on his chest to keep him there.
As the bikes all pull up, as Weevil's biker gang shows up.
And Charter's like, ha, beautiful sound, isn't it? And Weevil takes off his helmet and looks at Logan's like, we need to talk. They go around the Jeep and we don't hear any sound. But Logan is nodding at first, and then his expression gets like much more dour and he looks kind of scared. And then he like kind of pats his shirt and straightens it up a bit and walks over to the other guys like, let him go. They're like, wait, what? He's like, let him go. We're leaving. So
all the 09ers duck out. And, well, the 09ers don't duck out so much as Chardo gets up on his bike and the bike gang drives off.
Yep.
While the 09ers are looking on in confusion. So the bikers all drive up and stop near the beach, which we've seen as like kind of like their main hangout.
Yeah.
And they all get off their bikes and they're kind of circled up. And
Chardo's like, thanks, cousin. You know you're like a brother to me. Like, I would have gotten you out. You know that.
I'm sorry you had to take the fall for that, man. Like, and then Weevil goes,
you're out.
And Chardo goes, no, what? No. And
you're out of this. You're out of my life. You're out.
I never want to see you again. Turns into goes to walk away. He's like,
you know what that means. And then he turns to walk away.
Yeah. And Chardo's like, we're brothers, man.
Eli, come on. Eli.
And then the gang beats the shit out of Chardo.
Yeah.
And as Weevil gets on his bike, he tells like his lieutenant, like Felix, hey, don't let him go too far with him. Like, he is still technically, unfortunately, family.
Yeah. Like, but I do love Logan's reaction where Logan's like, oh yeah, I'm dealing with like kind of a legitimate gang. Like, because I have to assume Weevil was like, hey, this is a fucking gang problem. He tried to turn me in the guy who's in charge of all this, and he's my fucking family. No, we are dealing with it ourselves. Like, I assume the conversation was like, we're gonna deal with this, or you try to get involved, we'll deal with you, and then we'll deal with him. Like, we are all in a very bad mood at the moment.
Like, no matter how it happens between me and you here, and my group, and you stupid 09ers, Chardo's gonna get the shit beat out of him, one way or another. The question is, do you also want to get the shit beat out of you?
Yeah.
Because if so, we can do that. We can arrange to have that be the order of operations.
Yeah.
So we cut later to, I think it's the Mars investigation office again.
Yeah, and Veronica asks her father brother why he suspected Jake Kane in killing Lily.
But he doesn't give a straight answer because
he's like, I don't want you to think about Lily's death. I don't want you to be dwelling on it all. And she's like, I think if I knew something though, I could like do something. And it feels like she's about to say like get closure or something. He's like, I don't want you thinking about it at all. And she's like, okay.
So then we cut to her entering the sheriff's office with a fake ID, and she's talking how she really likes the weekends at the sheriff's station because it's staffed by a bunch of part-timers that don't know who she is.
And it's a fake ID that she and Lily got made just a bit before Lily died.
Yeah, her and Lily have fake IDs. Mm-hmm. And so she uses Lily's fake ID to con the clerk into giving her the original speeding ticket on Lily's vehicle. It turns out it was a traffic cam speeding ticket.
And it was from 2 hours after she supposedly died.
Indeed. So now none of the Kane's family alibis hold up because they were all for 2 hours later.
Mm-hmm. So maybe her dad was right after all.
So then, back at school,
the next day, yeah.
Troy asks Veronica why she didn't come to his party, and she's like, didn't feel like apologizing, since I didn't think I was in the wrong at all. Veronica then notices that all the popular kids, the 09ers, Logan, Duncan, and them, have all frozen Caitlin out of their circle like they did to Veronica, which she, in her inner monologue, compares to the same way Chardo is now frozen out of the motorcycle group, except I would much rather be in Caitlin's shoes than have the literal shit kicked out of me.
Yeah, I would much rather just be isolated than being jumped out.
Yeah.
Dude.
So,
jumped out, for people who doesn't know, is, I don't know if it's a common term. It's a term for being kicked out of a gang violently.
So then Troy's like, well...
You get jumped and you're kicked out. It's a combination of the two things.
So, yeah, and then Troy's like, so if you're not going to go to the party with me, you want to do mini golf or something instead? And she's like, yeah, if Wallace can come. And so the three of them head off to go mini golf. And that's the end of this episode. So, Joseph, after episode 2, what do you think of Veronica Mars?
I would watch more. It's a good show. I assume the exposition gets a bit less as we proceed.
Yeah.
Which is good.
As I said, I've already seen 23 episodes. I've seen the full first season and the first episode of season 2. Exposition, it seems, is heavy in it was really heavy in the first 2 or 3 episodes of a season. Yeah. And the last 2 or 3 episodes of a season. As the season goes on, we'll get less and less.
Okay.
But I would say it actually becomes more and more important, plot-wise.
Yeah.
As far as the exposition goes. We will also later get what's not exposition, but is instead Veronica theory crafting.
Okay.
In the same, camera style as the exposition, blue.
Okay.
Theory crafting what happened to Lily, putting together the crime in her head.
I think the theory crafting should just be in black and white. Take the noir leap.
Yeah, that'd be really cool. But that's not what happens. But yeah, like
also
you said,
make everyone speak like it's the fucking 40s.
There is more exposition to come. There is less exposition to come comparatively.
Yeah. Okay. What about you?
I've watched a season and an episode. I love the show.
Yeah.
It's got a really weird history as far as the making of the show goes, because it had 3 seasons from 2005 to 2007, and then I think 5 or 6 years between that and a Veronica Mars movie.
Okay.
And then was picked up for season 4 in 2019 on Hulu. Yeah. So
from what I've heard, it is one of the few series that had a good reboot.
Yeah. And it got the entire cast back, well, most of the cast back, and it does pick up where it left off in some senses.
Okay.
So it's got an interesting timeline, and that makes me more interested in seeing how they handled that, because watching how shows handle coming back is always interesting.
Right.
But also the show's very good. It's very much a teen drama, but it's not softball punching the teen drama.
Fair enough.
I mean, I don't know if we need to say that it's not softballing when the first episode and a key part of season 1 is being drugged and raped.
Yeah.
That's heavy
and the
topics.
Death of your best friend.
Yeah. And the death of your best friend.
Gang violence.
Yeah. The show is a teen drama, but it takes it takes on serious subject matter in a way where it's not trivializing it.
Okay, fair.
I really enjoy it.
Okay, I would agree. And I think that concludes us for this episode.
Indeed it does. And if you would like to reach out to us to talk about your opinions on Veronica Mars or teen dramas in general, because there's a plethora of teen dramas and a plethora of ways to contact us.
Such as emailing us at copilotsreview@gmail.com.
Or hitting us up on Blue Sky at copilotsreview.
Or you can find a link to both of those, as well as our Discord, our Patreon, our YouTube, our Blue Sky. Yeah, which are all linked on our website, copilotsreview.simplecast.com.
Anyways, thanks for flying with us.
And please, fly again soon.